is about domestic violence, which is Muslims are blamed for domestic violence. And it's not something that we deny that it doesn't exist in our communities. It does. But what we have to say, it also exists in other communities. But why we always highlight it with domestic violence? Do you know why? Because we should be the ones who set the example in society of how to behave with our spouses. Why is that? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, خَيْرُكُمْ خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِهِ. The best of you are those who are the best of you for your wives. وَأَنَا خَيْرُكُمْ لِأَهْلِي. And I am the best of you for my wives. Sayyida Aisha radiallahu anha was asked, كيف كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في بيته? How was the messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم in his house? She replied, كان بساما ضحاكا. He used to smile and he used to laugh, صلى الله عليه وسلم. وكان في مهنة أهله. And he used to help out with his blessed family in his house. كان يحلب شاته ويرقع صوبه. He صلى الله عليه وسلم, he used to milk the sheep. He used to fix his sandals, and he used to amend his clothes himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if there was anything that he needed to do, he would stand up and do it himself without asking anybody else to do it. One of the righteous and the pious that we met just a few weeks ago, he said to us, he said, never instruct anybody to do anything. He said, never instruct anybody to do anything. He said, not even your wife. Don't ask for anything. Don't ask for some. He said, stand up and do it yourself. He said, because every human being has feelings, and nobody likes to be burdened, and nobody likes to come under command. He said, when you have something to do, you should stand up and do it yourself. Is that clear? On the other hand, people should also have a sense of service to each other. A sense of service to each other. One of the awliya Allah in Damascus, who our teacher Shaykh Abdul Razak al-Halabi rahmatullah alayhi used to say, anybody who wants to see a man from the people of paradise, then they should look at this man. Anybody who wants to see a man from the people of paradise, then they should look at this man. His name was Shaykh Ghassan. Shaykh Ghassan. He was a simpleton person who kept himself to himself, engaged in the remembrance of Allah, and he used to go around the masjids of Damascus, cleaning them and washing the wudu areas. Shaykh Fawaz told us that Shaykh Abdul Razak rahmatullah alayhi said to him, "Oh Shaykh Ghassan, your wife will serve you." And he said, "Astaghfirullah, who am I to be served?" He said, "Astaghfirullah, who am I to be served?" Shaykh Abdul Razak said to him, "Your wife will serve you." He said, "Astaghfirullah, who am I to be served?" See the humility and the humbleness of the righteous, of the pious. So service is not a one-way road. There has to be mutual service between the spouses. Is that clear?
You know this Shaykh Ghassan, subhanallah, all day long what would he do? He would go around to the masjids of Damascus. He was a graduate of al-Islami. He studied for 7 years. He never studied in our times, he studied in the times of Shaykh Saleh Farfur radiallahu anh. He would go around to the masjids of Damascus and he would clean the toilets. He would go to the dormitories of the students of knowledge and clean the toilets. Right? And all day long he'd pray for this ummah, make dua for this ummah. I saw with my own eyes, in summer times, he would sit in the masjid where Shaykh Muhammad Sa'id Ramadan Bhuti rahmatullah alayhi would give dars. The Shaykh would give dars after Maghrib. Shaykh Ghassan would come to his masjid at the Zuhr time in summer, so around 12 o'clock. And he would sit till 8 o'clock in the evening like this. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, making dua for them all day long. If you ever went up to him and said, "Sayyidi, do dua for me," he said, "I'm not your Sayyid, you're my Sayyid, you do dua for me." Pure hearts. Didn't want to speak about anything of the world. Speak about Allah. Shaykh Fawaz was very close to him. Shaykh Fawaz told us that in Syria everyone had to do the military service. So when he was sent for the military service for 2.5 years, one one of the duties that he had to do was he was put on guard outside some buildings, military buildings, and he was given a Kalashnikov, right? And anyone who's on guard, they would be patrolled by military police. They'd be patrolled by military police. So one day the military police is looking around for where this guard is, and they couldn't find him. So they searched and searched, and they found someone in the distance. They drove over, and man, what are you doing? You're supposed to be guarding over there. And he had his Kalashnikov in the earth, and he said, I'm trying to work out if it's Asr time or not. They said to him, you jump in. He jumped in, they dropped him off to the local mosque and said, finish your military service here. Just sit here. Simple person. Shaykh Fawaz said one night he was praying tahajjud in his house. Shaykh Ghassan was praying tahajjud in his nice house. Right? Robbers came into his house. Thieves came into his house. Yeah? And he stood praying. He didn't move. He didn't move. And his wife came running from the other room. So they came into the house. They must have seen him standing praying. They got frightened, so they jumped back out of the window. And his wife came and she said, I think we've been robbed. Did you hear that noise? And this is no mujamala, this is no making up. This is how he was. You know what he said to her? He said, I think your brothers came to visit us. And he wasn't even making it up. This is how he was. He said, I think your brothers came to visit us. Shaykh Abdul Razak al-Halabi rahmatullahi alayhi knew of this man and how his states are. After he got married, the Shaykh said to him, Ya Shaykh Ghassan, Zawjatak batakhmadamak. Shaykh Ghassan, your wife is going to serve you. He said, Astaghfirullah, who am I to be served? He said, Astaghfirullah, who am I to be served? Simple people. He walked on the streets of Damascus just like a simple man. But our teacher said, you want to see the people of paradise? Then look at this man. What was in him? Not this chit chat. Talk about him, sitting around on WhatsApp, on Facebook, all this rubbish. There's not people who are connected to Allah. They don't need none of this. Seriously, they don't need none of this. All they need is going to the masjids. You see some of these old men sitting reciting Quran day and night. Look into their faces. Look at the anwar in their faces. You know why? It's got nothing to do with anyone. Just sit and recite Quran. Sit and recite Quran. Pray there 5. Don't want to bother with anyone. Just be simple people. Allah said, alaykum anfusakum. Allah said in the Quran, believing people, alaykum anfusakum. Deal with yourselves. Forget about anyone else. But now we want to know about everyone else and not know about ourselves. We want to know about everyone. What's going on Facebook, what's going on Twitter, what's going on YouTube, what's going on here. People, that's not the way of the people of Allah. They sat in the masajid connected to Allah. Our teacher Shaykh Abdul Razak al-Halabi rahmatullahi alayhi, I was reciting Quran to him one day and a man walked in. And this particular man was one of the khadims of Shaykh Ahmad Habbal rahmatullahi alayhi. And he went over to the Shaykh and he gave him salam. And Shaykh Abdul Razak said to him, Shaykh Ahmad, addesh umro. Shaykh Ahmad, how old is he? And the man said, I think he's about 106 years old. I think he's about 106 years old. And Shaykh Abdul Razak said to him, well, that's right, because when I was a little boy, we used to hear about him and see him. When I was a little boy, we used to hear about him, we used to see him. And Shaykh Abdul Razak, the next thing, what did he say? He said, Ana khadim hon mun sittin sana. I've been a khadim in this masjid for 60 years. You know what that means? The man never moved from the house of Allah, except to go to another lesson somewhere else, or to go home.